PC Gamer, in all of its genius, has delivered yet another wonderful headline here. We've got watch a latex-clad billionaire punch out poor people in the debut gameplay trailer for Batman Arkham Shadow. Now, I'm not too excited about this game. I don't know too many people who really are, when we get down to it. And the fact of the matter is that it's one of those VR games that's trying to meet that meta thing that Zuckerberg's up to. And I'm not really down for it. VR's fun in some circumstances, but it seems really more useful in the obscure games and the simulator games than, being Batman. Kind of the majesty of being Batman is kind of lost when you're actually Batman, when you're in Batman's POV. But that's not what PC Gamer's problem is. As usual, it's the class warfare situation, but it got so bad for them that even the community notes had to step in and say, Batman does not punch random poor people. As the tweet suggests, he specifically attacks criminals, right? Especially and specifically, right? So we need to make sure that we rate this because, I'm a good ex-citizen, right? We'll make sure that we rate this after the video, right? Because I don't give away my secrets, you see. But we're going to go over here and check out this tweet post, if you prefer, on X. This post on X from Mark Stephen Ford, okay? We got it right here. He says, oh no! The Batman never uses his money to help Gotham myth is back. Time to bring out this list again. And thankfully, Mark has supplied us with a list of all the good deeds that Mr. Wayne has provided the fictional city of Gotham with. Now he says, the largest single donor to Gotham's Children's Hospital, the largest single donor to Leslie Tompkins Free Clinic, the largest single donor to Gotham's halfway houses, built and funded the Elliott Memorial Hospital, built and maintains numerous low-cost housing projects, which he also quake-proofed, so we can assume they're kept in a high standard, right? Started the Wayne Foundation, the charity branch of Wayne Enterprises. It supports various charitable efforts and grants to the underprivileged and at-risk people. Started the Thomas Wayne Foundation, a charitable organization for medicine and medical aid that funds new medical research and provides medical insurance for those who can't afford it. Started the Martha Wayne Foundation, a charitable organization for the arts, families, and education and tolerance. Funded the Neon Knights, an outreach program for gangs and at-risk youth. Wayne Enterprises also offers employment to ex-convicts, and all employees of Wayne Enterprises, including unpaid interns, are eligible for a grant toward higher education. That's right. So yeah, Batman, that's just awful, horrible guy that does no good whatsoever. PC Gamer is so twisted upside down about this. Here's what they write about it, okay? Let's just take a looky-loo at what they got here. They write, the new trailer focuses on exploration, dialogue, and of course, plenty of fisticuffs. As the world's greatest detective whomps the living hell out of dozens of flunkies and underlings on his way to ensuring that nothing ever really changes for the better in the bleak, crumbling metropolis of Gotham City. Quote is from the Rat King. The Rat King says, a corrupt system has failed you. Are you not angry? And so the caption this guy provides is the villainous Rat King. At least I assume that's the Rat King, says at this point. And you need to fight back, is what he says. And he says, the man has a point, right? If your life is an endless swamp of futility and hopelessness, and the best the people in power can offer is a sock in the chops from a guy dressed up like a flying rat, well, I think I'd be a little angry about things too. And this is the age-old situation, right? Where the criminals have a point, the lawbreakers, the people that are mass murdering Gotham citizens, they deserve to be heard, right? The whole situation is because they couldn't be heard. We should let their voices be heard. No, they're murderers, they're criminals, they're evil people that are causing mayhem, destruction, dismay, and death, all right? And they need to be dealt with. Now, I don't agree with killing the villains in comic books, least of all in comic book video games when you can actually show it frame by frame. It's a little, it defeats the point of a superhero in my opinion. We have heroes, okay? The police, for instance, they have to end the lives of people sometimes in order to protect themselves and also to protect those around them. And I'm not referring to any specific one that led to riots or anything like that. There have been a few. But in general, The police only take lethal action. Again, this is the standard, not the exception, which is when they harm people who don't possess the ability to defend themselves. Let's put it that way. I have to be careful because it's YouTube. All right, I don't want to go talking about all that and then end up getting the video taken down. Okay, that's the reality of this. So I want to be careful with how I'm telling you this. But when we break this down to what's happening here is that the Rat King is a criminal and he should be treated as such. And that's not to say that he's a bad person because he has a problem with the way Gotham works, okay? There's plenty of characters like Vicky Vale, Rip Hunter, uh, um, not Tom. Well, yeah, Thomas Wayne for a little while was against how Gotham was being run. That's what led to his demise in one comic book or a few. I'm not sure how that went in the main canon, but I remember reading a few comic books that detailed that Thomas Wayne was in opposition to the mafia houses, and you know, anyway, that whole thing, right? So you've got people that do the right thing in opposition to a systematic, structure of abuse, and I'm not talking about like, oh, the Rat King's black, so everybody picks on him. That's not what I'm talking about. The Falcone family has controlled Falcone, if you prefer, has controlled Gotham's underworld for quite some time. This was a big deal in the Batman Year One story. And this is what I'm talking about, is this kind of systematic control where the organized crime or groups within Gotham are controlling whole sectors of how life is lived in the city from the top to the bottom. And this is no secret. Batman goes out and confronts the criminals that are superstitious and committing the violent crimes. And every now and then he runs up against this like Lex Luthor style Court of Owls thing that's an actual global apparatus instead of just local. I'm gonna knock over a few banks, Batman. You can't stop me. I'm gonna flip a coin on your head, a giant penny. You'll never escape it, right? Certainly don't run to the left or the right. Just run straight forward, okay? Just the Prometheus school of running away from things. And that's again, like, it's Batman. Come on. We don't need to go like killing the criminal here, but we also need to make sure that we're interpreting what's actually happening, okay? The Rat King's complaint is completely rendered null, unlike what PC Gamer wants us to believe with this article. Consider for a minute that Bruce Wayne has allied himself with many different characters in the Gotham's Rogues Gallery, right? Not his personal Rogues Gallery. He's also outside of him, like Nightwing's baddies and all these other characters. He's even had like Harley and Poison Ivy on his side before. So it's all sorts of different characters that come around, like Livewire has come around and whatnot. And so you've got these different elements that Bruce Wayne is allied with in the past. So he's not stuck up. He's not a what did they call this? They said this up here. They said the first proper look at the upcoming VR take on the adventures of the most therapy averse billionaire in history. And it's like, that's not, you're getting too real with it, okay? You're getting too real with it. And this again kind of is also the fault of like game developers, movie makers, comic book creators for dragging Batman into the realm of like absolute realism. And that's, I don't know. I grew up with the 1966 Batman. My mother was a huge fan of that, and so that's what was on television when we weren't watching westerns with dad. So I mean, I got the Batman that parked out front of Gotham City Hall, didn't even lock the doors on the Batmobile, and walked through the front door, went into Commissioner Gordon's office, and picked up the red phone there and talked to people through that. So that's, I'm sorry, I'm familiar with a Batman that is a little less realistic, a little less vigilante, and a little more superhero. And this is what I'm talking about, is that in PC Gamer's article here, in the excerpt that we read, this very short article, but in the excerpt that we read here, they're expecting a realism to come out of these complaints from the Rat King, and they draw much like a very realistic sort of viewpoint of Gotham, right? Like, again, it's very dim, it's very grungy. Batman's obviously needed because the police are either incapable of carrying out their job because there's so much crime and it's so overwhelming, or they are corrupt and they're not carrying out their work for whatever reason. And so this is a fictional realm. When you acknowledge the real world aspects of it, you start dragging it into a place it's not supposed to be. The complaints the Rat King is making about the corrupt system that failed you is more an observation of how Gotham's criminal system has no effort for reform. This is where that list that we just showed you, having Wayne Industries hiring ex-convicts, is important. A private industry had to step up to take care of this because the government in Gotham isn't handling it. The government in, I believe, New Jersey, I think that's where Gotham is set, in the state of New Jersey. They're not handling it. They're not actually providing a pathway for these people to, have a better life, get an opportunity to not have to commit crime to survive. Because again, we see this time and time again with the henchmen that Batman confronts in his comic books. The henchmen are just trying to make ends meet. They're trying to provide for their kids, and this is the only avenue that they found. Again, not a story too far out of reality, but again, you're dealing with a guy in a bat suit. You've got to remember what temperature of the room. And this again is another symptom of that realism. And I know a lot of people believe that Batman should be this realistic kind of hero. We got so many of them out there that are crazy, off the wall, absolutely unbelievable. It's nice to have a guy that's semi-plot proof. He's semi-plot proof. He'll survive most things. He'll make it out with most of his limbs, but he's just a regular guy that bleeds when he gets shot, And that attracts a lot of people to that genre. But there again, Bruce Wayne as Batman is supposed to be a superhero. You have regular heroes, right? And I'm not trying to diminish what a hero is, because in real life, being a hero is very, very dangerous. You don't survive getting shot too often. It's unless you've had an accidental desk pop and put a hole in your foot. Most of the time, when gunfire happens, somebody doesn't walk away. Okay. And so being a hero in real life is a lot different than being a superhero in a comic book that can soak a few bullets and then have a moral to deliver at the end of the adventure still. And survive to marry the girl at the end as the sunset on the beach displays there that nice pink sunset, and you get the caption of, "And this is what I learned on this adventure." You know? That's not how life usually goes in real life. So you can't keep dragging this character into real life and expecting him to survive almost any encounter he has. Okay? The kind of stuff that Batman actually conducts in his comics, in his stories, will get most human beings, most regular people that aren't protected by a writer telling the universe how to behave around this guy, killed. You'll be done. That'll be the end of you, attempting most of what Batman does. And again, dragging it into the realism leads to these kind of observations by people who are obsessed with politics, by people who want to frame everything through a political lens. The intention of the Rat King is to speak about Gotham's problems. But because the writers of this game confused so much real world politics, so much happening outside your window information, they've ended up creating a sense of realism, a parallel with the class warfare we have in real life with these characters in the game. Now, am I saying that PC Gamer is right, that Batman's rich and beating the hell out of the poor? No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that they have decided that the realist sort of postmodernist observations placed in the game's narrative are speaking to the reality that they live in. That the rich are getting away with it, that these abuses are happening because the system is corrupt and favors so many people, and it's got nothing to do with this fictional realm. It's all told through the lens of this guy in a bat costume. The only absurd part of this whole problem is the guy in the bat costume to PC Gamer. Okay, they're forgetting that this whole problem the Rat King has exists out of Gotham's fictional politics, fictional environments. This was I believe it was Homicide: Life in the City or something like that. One of those early homicide shows, the dramas there that showed you what it was like to be a detective, and it became very popular before the procedural dramas really took off and then burned out. But they were talking about how they used to pull. It was Law and Order too. One of the two of these shows was saying that they used to pull headlines from what was happening in the city and turn those into episodes. And of course, it would make people angry because that was their family that ended up, involved in that, fatally or otherwise. And so they stopped doing that and ended up embracing, a purely fictional situation. And that's the problem with bridging this into too much realism, is that you're connecting a dot that isn't meant to be there. And that's why I think Batman needs to go back to being a little silly. He needs to go back to being a friendly kind of character. He needs to go back to laughing. You know, wouldn't that be nice if you had a Batman that said, "You're right, old chum." Still had a brightness to him. You know, he was certainly sad, obviously, having lost his parents. It's a great loss. It's a terrible feeling to be alone in the world like that, to not have an idea of what you're supposed to do with yourself, and have this burning desire to be greater than your parents, to show them that you did they did their job in pushing humanity in their own little pixel of Google Earth as best as they could, that they got us that much further through their representation of you. This is one of the things I try to tell people about the conflicts going on in the world, is that every person that ends up not walking away from that, every person that ends up, expiring, they were once the greatest hope for the world that their parents had. Someone looked at that person and said, you will be the person that changes everything. You are my greatest hope for this world. That old Jor-El um, speech to Kal-El, that kind of thing. And that's the important thing to remember. And that's totally lost on this new Batman, this newer Batman. It's around the time that Christopher Nolan's IRL Batman kind of took off. And we lost I'm not saying the Schumacher movies were great. Don't get me wrong, okay? I'm not saying that was a wise idea, okay? Especially all the Mr. Freeze puns. We're not no. Bat nipples, not a good idea. But in reality, as we're watching these movies, Batman transcended from being a superhero to being something you can do in your basement. And it kind of broke Batman from being this character that kind of represented the best of a bad situation, what you could do when you had your entire world destroyed in front of you, how you could rebuild your life and make it matter, apply a purpose where you didn't have one anymore, you know? And that, Batman's story of attracting a family through his work, beginning with Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and then ending up with Tim Drake, and eventually Damian. I don't like Damian, but eventually Damian. Him building a family out of these people with Barbara Gordon, Stephanie Brown, these characters that came to form the Bat family as we know them. And so it is important for us to kind of recognize that Batman is kind of causing this sort of take. PC Gamer isn't wrong in how they observe this, because the game deliberately sets out to create a narrative that's parallel to the class war we experience in real life. Whereas 1966 Batman is just having a hard time getting rid of a bomb without killing some ducks. He doesn't want to drop a bomb into the bay where the ducks, they may even just fly away. He doesn't even want to disturb them, okay? Do you remember that? He didn't want to drop the bomb on the ducks in order to, they'd fly away, disturb them, bonk them on the head, He had the bat shark repellent, instead of shooting the shark, he had a spray that made it explode anyway. But anyway, the 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 world leaders were rendered down into freeze-dried rainbow powder into vials, and then just a drop of water brought them all back to life. Come on. What are we trying to do with superheroes? Are we trying to show you a step-by-step direction on how to exact violent justice in your neighborhood? Is that what we're trying to do with Batman? Are we trying to teach people how to go around and beat the dickens out of anybody in the shadows at night? I mean, it sounds romantic, right? You're going to go out there and defend your neighborhood, until you beat up the guy that's just trying to have a cigarette without his wife knowing, and he's hiding in the shadow of a tree, puffing away, and he's kind of looking and giving everybody the side eye, telling, kind of broadcasting, "Don't tell my wife," But then you beat the dickens out of him because he's being shady at night. Whoops. All he had was a nicotine addiction. And then that's the problem. You start building into Batman not the detective work anymore, just a response to presumed villainy. That's really what he is now, is he's just responding to it. The Batman of the past was proactively fighting crime. He was proactively pushing a message of reform. The Batman of today reacts to crime, and he reacts very violently to it. And that's why you have this narrative. That's why PC Gamer feels comfortable publishing all of this nonsense about Batman, because it reflects a narrative that they're comfortable in real life with. Whereas the old Batman didn't have this kind of attachment to his agenda. He was not constantly repeating that his family was dead. He was not constantly kind of reviewing the loss of all the people in his life. Instead, he was a character that was motivated in improving the city of Gotham and wherever he was called to action. That's chiefly what he was up to. And just like this loud truck going by, it's a little hard to not notice this tone shift in this character. Did the culture change? Absolutely. The US is a very different place than what it was in the 60s. But are we so far gone that we can't identify with a hero that maybe isn't bloodying his knuckles against his villains and instead winning surf competitions against them? Is there room in the pantheon of superheroes for a bat-themed leather-clad man that, just does a really good dance move and outdances his villains and they go, "Oh, you've defeated me again," and they're shamed into surrendering? Isn't that okay? Isn't the greatest grand scheme of the Joker to, fraudulently win a surf competition and collect the prize money to then use to purchase weapons to take over a bank, you know? Wouldn't that be just nice to just have a Batman story that isn't like millions of people will die, Batman, unless you make a decision to kill right now? Dun 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 dun. Dun. Wouldn't it be nice if we just didn't if that wasn't Batman for 10 minutes, Just 10 minutes. You don't have to go into this whole franchise. Wouldn't it just be nice to have a Batman that's just like, "Yeah, no, I'm going to win that surf competition, Joker. I'm not going to let you get that money so you can rob that bank." Instead of arresting him, beating the tar out of him, breaking a surfboard over the top of his head, Batman outsurfs the Joker. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to look at superheroes and say, yeah, those guys need to be behaving in a way that is realistic. Those people with their underwear on the outside need to be behaving in a way that's realistic. I don't like that. I think that's silly. I think that's defeating the purpose of the superhero. The superhero possesses a super morality. That's why PC Gamer gets this idea about class warfare, because Batman doesn't possess a super morality anymore. He possesses a light-dark dichotomy. You're either on his side or you're against him. He's a bit of a sociopath these days in how he approaches dispensing justice. Take a look at those Snyder movies. He literally has a tank dragging criminals behind it at high speed, basically using their car like a wrecking ball, and they're all dead at the end of that scene. Even in the Nolan movies, he has a jet that shoots missiles. What superior morality is the superhero in Batman representing? It's not there anymore. Do you need to go back to the camp and the cheesy rescuing cats from trees and orphans from cliff's edges? Maybe, for a little while, to kind of reset the dial, reset the temperature, clear the air, get the wet fart of the 80s out of comic books for a bit so we can go back to maybe pushing an agenda, pushing a message, pushing an idea, a vision of the future that isn't a smoldering crater, with various monsters crawling out of it, zombies or extra-dimensional starfish, what have you, But that's basically the unified vision of the future, and Batman's an excellent representation of that. There's a character that comes from a very dark background. And Batman's story was supposed to be him pushing back against that and creating a light in the darkness, rather than how he is represented today with simply being a hammer of justice. If you misbehave, the hammer of Batman will come down on your head. That doesn't inspire anything. That doesn't lead anywhere good. That leads to a lot of bumped noggins, a lot of concussions. Doesn't lead to a lot of change. So I disagree with what PC Gamer's issue is here, but I raised a different one. That Batman has invited this kind of critique by becoming far too realistic. That it's time to go back to the goofy Batman that wins surf competitions, that has cookouts, that walks to the front door of Gotham PD and has a beer with Commissioner Gordon in broad fucking daylight. That's where we need to go for just a little while to reset the dial. But you let me know what you think about it down below. Let me know in the comments what you think about this, and chiefly, what are your opinions about Batman in this current era? When you were younger, what was Batman's overall atmosphere? How did you review Batman? How did you see him? And is he different today? Let me know down in the comments about that. But until the next one, guys, good luck out there.